Hello, everybody. Good morning to those of you in morning time. It's morning for me. I just woke up and I thought that this would be the perfect time to talk about sleep. I have had a lot of problems with sleep. It was one of the first symptoms of my chronic illness, and I know that a lot of people with chronic illnesses do struggle with sleep. And sleep is this weird in between one because there are doctors that do deal with this. And if you do struggle with sleep, I'm sure you've been to many of those sleep studies where you go and get knobs all up on your head and your body and put in this small uncomfortable bed and cold room, and they say, okay, now just like sleep like normal, we're going to monitor your sleep. And there are a lot of medications that can aid with sleep, and those can all be really helpful in the short term if you have something that's gone a little bit wonky and you need help getting back on track. However, where these sleep doctors fail is, I think, the same way that the medical system in the Western world can fail a lot of people with chronic illnesses, is that they're not looking at the very root of the problem and how we can perhaps first try to fix these sleep problems on our own without first going to medication. However, it does depend case to case. Having sleep medication did really help me for a time because it gave me the ability to sleep through the night and have a little bit more energy during the day. However, it was not a good long-term solution. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about my journey with sleep and some of the medications I was on and some of the more natural medications, and then just some of the non-medical things that I did to sleep better. And now, I mean, I'm not a perfect sleeper. I do still sometimes get insomnia, but it is much better, and I often fall asleep easily and feel rested when I wake up, which is what we all want, and I did not have that for many years. So first, yeah, I went to the sleep doctor and had all those tests with all the knobs, and it was not very fun. It was very uncomfortable. And I was put on several different sleep medications to try that were quite strong. And I remember every time I went to the pharmacy, they were like, "You're not supposed to take this long term." I was like, "But I have a prescription. Like, I don't know what you want from me." I was a teenager at the time. Um, and I would have to keep changing medications because, of course, I would build up an immunity to them and then I would need to switch. And so it was clear that this was just not working long term, but I was never talked to really by my doctors about any of the more natural methods that could perhaps help sleep. And I was told that I had phase delay syndrome or insomnia, but I didn't really have anyone looking into why this was coming about or what are some things I could do in my lifestyle to perhaps fix this. If you find that you sleep okay, but you just have a lot of trouble falling asleep at first, and then once you fall asleep, you sleep fine, your problem might be phase delay. And I remember trying these things where I would attempt to like stay up a couple hours later every night until eventually you get to like 9 or 10 p.m. the next day, and then hopefully that's your sleep time. So if you do find that that is something worth trying, for me, that was not really my problem. My problem was a lot of racing thoughts that were keeping me awake rather than just this delay in sleep time. But if you do fall asleep pretty easily, but you're just not tired until later, that could be definitely something to try. Though it is a challenge to stay up past your bedtime for those few nights when you reset, but it can be a nice way to reset. And then if you do want a bit of medical help, but you don't want a strong medication, there are a couple things that you can try. So melatonin is probably the most popular one to try, and that just releases the chemicals in your brain that signals to your body that it's time to sleep. A lot of people take it for jet lag as well. It's just over the counter in most countries. So again, as a short-term thing, you will build an immunity to that. But if you're like, oh, I just have something that I need to do this week or tomorrow, and I really want to be able to fall asleep, that can be something to try. If you've been on stronger medications, you might not find it super effective, but it can also be a good way to wean off stronger medications because it is more of a natural drug. It is over the counter. It is not quite as strong. So it can help you wean off, or it can also be a lighter option for people who want that. I also found for a time magnesium powder helpful. and I would just, like, mix it in with hot water. It tasted really terrible. I can still remember the taste in my mouth, but that also helped. About the same level of melatonin. It was definitely not as strong as the other drugs I had been on, but I didn't at that point. I had been on drugs for several years. They all stopped working. I still wasn't sleeping. I was getting really frustrated with them. I wanted to be off them, and so that's when I switched to the magnesium powder. And it did help me relax a little bit. If anything, I was a bit like one of Pavlov's dogs because once I tasted that terrible taste, I knew it was bedtime. So I think it was a little bit effective as well. So that's definitely another thing to try. So just to recap, we've got if you can see a sleep specialist and they might prescribe you something strong, but I mean, I am not a doctor, but I think for many people we don't want to be on pills forever. Um, Magnesium and melatonin are both also good options, but again, also for short term, because again, we don't want to need to have these aids forever, and we can't be on these aids forever because we will build up an immunity. So, but those are definitely some things that I've tried that I found helpful and that you can definitely try as well. But what really helped me the most was starting to do yoga and meditation. And what I found is that the reason I wasn't sleeping was because my mind was racing and I had all these ideas and these thoughts, and that was really keeping me awake. So even though I was exhausted all day and I was physically exhausted, my mind was not relaxed at bedtime. And that's why I had struggle sleeping. I would wake up in the night because my mind was still in this really active mode. So what I really had to learn, or what I learned I had to learn, because I guess the first thing is to learn what you do not know. So what I really had to learn was to find ways to relax. And I really found that in meditation and in yoga because I didn't like this idea that I was like, "Oh, I can't just stop thinking." And I had someone recommend to me, a naturopath at some point, to do deep breathing before bed, and I was like, "Oh, well, I don't need that." But what I loved about meditation is that you actually do watch your thoughts, and I could see how fast my thoughts were going, and I could learn to remove myself from those thoughts. So by learning to be kind of emotionally removed from those thoughts and still staying in the present moment, that allowed my body to calm down more, because when my mind was racing a mile a minute and thinking of all these things I had to do and all these worries that I had, my body was actually going into kind of this fight or flight mode, this stressed out mode. And of course, that's not conducive for sleeping. So even though I couldn't eliminate these thoughts with meditation, I could kind of remove them myself from those thoughts. And that allowed my body to go into rest mode, to rest and digest mode. And so that was really helpful. And I mean, it was not an overnight change. You don't just I didn't just meditate once and all of a sudden I could sleep super well all the time. And as I said, there's still some nights when I can't sleep. But once I started to build this regular yoga and meditation practice, it really helped a lot. It really gave me the tools that I needed for the long term. And for a while, I was combining that with some medication, but I really was trying to wean off this medication because it just did not seem like a long term solution for me. And in the end, I was able to completely go off medication. I think it took about between 6 months and a year. I can't remember now. It was about 8 years ago now to fully be off any medication and just to use the tools that I had from yoga and meditation. So that's basically what I have to say about sleep. I know it can be super, super frustrating when you can't sleep. And I sometimes like set limits for myself, like, if I can't sleep in an hour, then I'm going to get up and do something. It's also helpful just to meditate in bed because actually meditation can give your body a lot of the same benefits that sleep can. So sometimes you can just say, okay, well, I can't fall asleep now. I can meditate for half an hour, and that's going to be also really helpful and restful for my body. So I don't need to beat myself up about not being able to sleep, because that is obviously also not helpful and doesn't make you go to sleep. It's, the don't think of a pink elephant kind of thing. Um, so yeah, so I do, and to summarize, I do think that medication can definitely play a role in helping you sleep better. And but for me, and I think for most of us, we hope that that's not going to be the long-term solution. And you build a lot of immunities, and if you're lucky, you might have a doctor who's recommending you more complementary treatments as well. But that was not my experience. So I wish that I had known more about the causes of my insomnia and how, even though I was tired and my body, if my mind was chattering, that could still affect my body. I didn't really know any of that. So that's how, yeah, yoga and meditation really helped me a lot for the long term. But I hope you've also got an idea of some other things that might help you for the short term if you really need to sleep right now. So I think that that is about it for me today. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and I'll be back with a couple more in the next couple weeks. So I'd love to connect with anybody that is an insomniac, and wishing you a good sleep tonight in whatever time zone you're in. Night.